Yeah. Step up to the plate. Yeah, we calling it straight. No cap in the game. Yeah, we speaking no fake. On this count cash. While the fans get played. While the players risk it all just to earn they pay. We break it all down. Yeah, the truth gon' show behind every deal. Yes, money is sold. From the dugout talk to the front office lies. Welcome to the show. Where we cut through the disguise. Steady on BS. Yeah. Steady on BS. Let's go.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. This is Frankie Castellan, the host of Stadium BS. Take a look at my website, www.castellanms.com. That is CASTELLONMS.com, where I'm selling everything, including the kitchen sink and my hair follicles. All my social media is there. Everything I'm selling is there, including exclusive merchandise and even vintage merchandise. Go take a look at it. I have multiple platforms. Just click on it and you see what's going on. In addition, I do have a couple of surveys. One, if you want to be a sponsor of the show, please take the survey for that. Or if you would like to be a guest, or if you have any great topics for me to cover on the show, please take that survey as well. Or just feel free to DM me. Either or. Just wanted to go through a couple topics real quick. One, the Bears are not going to be staying in Chicago. I posted on social media that they're going to Hammond, Indiana. That's just my prediction. It's not a bad thing. There's no way that cities can afford sports teams anymore. I'm like, there's so many other issues going on in the cities, and they just decide, go to the outskirts. Look at Kansas City. Look at, where else? New York, New Jersey. Santa Clara for San Francisco. They can't pay for it. They have other fish to fry. So whoever has the checkbook, whoever has the funds in a nearby community, they're gonna get the team. So that's what's going to happen. It's going to Hammond, Indiana, which is a hop, skip, and a jump from Chicago. And that's all there is to it. So we'll see how that saga goes. What else? I was going to mention something. Oh, the other part, and I'll post this on social media, is GE Vernova Park, which is in Malden, South Carolina, not too far away from me. And I took a picture last week of the current status of it, and it still looks like a construction site. Mind you, this picture was taken last week. This week is gonna be the first game for the Greenville Triumph of the USL. I forgot, 2 league something league, I don't remember. It's a secondary league. How is that gonna work for a sold out crowd, from what I've been notified? In addition to the area, which is called Bridgeway Station, it has no parking. And you're talking about a mixed-use development of not only apartments, you're looking at restaurants, bars, and making it look like a taste of Italy. And now you're adding the stadium to the mix, and there's no parking. Let me know how it goes, because that's what it looks like last week. I don't know if that's going to be any changes this week. But anyway, those are the two things I wanted to talk about. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Philip from the World Atlas Cup. And he's going to explain to me what the World Atlas Cup is, because I have no clue, but I'm looking forward to learning something new. You have a good day. God bless. And I'll see you on the next one. Stadium BS is in the house. www.castellanms.com, where it's everything Frankie, including the kitchen sink. I have a special guest on the line. He has a very interesting project that he's doing that I need to know more information about. His name is Philip. He is part of the World Atlas Cup. Did I get that correctly?
Just Atlas Cup, actually. Just Atlas
Cup.
Oh,
Atlas Cup? Okay. All right. I'm curious. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Frankie.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so tell us about the Atlas Cup. What is this all about?
Yeah, it's insane. So I'm introducing professional sports to space. So think America's Cup meets F1, uncrewed, state-of-the-art satellites racing head-to-head in low Earth orbit. We're going to be the fastest sport in history the moment we launch. So we're brand new. We started earlier this year, but we're already making great strides, right? We've got dozens of partners already signed up. We've got multiple teams committed to going off and racing. We're building towards a 2028 Grand Prix, and we're going to create the future of sports in space.
So how does this work? I'm like, what is the rules? How the competition works? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a whole bunch of different formats that we're fiddling with, but fundamentally what we're talking about is a maneuver-based competitive function, right? So what we're thinking is in space, you can't have head-to-head speed challenges because if you go faster, you end up going higher. You don't necessarily end up getting in front of someone else.
Right.
Now, there's some interesting ways we can play with some physics around something called phase shifting to allow kind of a classical kind of like jump in front of the other party race format. But we're not thinking about doing that for year one. Year one is classical maneuvering, right? So think the best analogy here is sail racing. So if you take Sail GP or America's Cup, all they really do is they define, hey, look, here's an arbitrary body of water. Here's an arbitrary starting point. You can't cross the starting point until we tell you to start. And then you're going to go through these 10 buoys and you're going to follow the buoys in the following order. And you're going to do a series of maneuvers as a result. You might go up and then tack and come back and go left and then go right and go around and then loop back to where you were. That's exactly what we're going to be doing, but in space. We're going to define orbital parameters where everyone starts, and then we're going to perform a series of maneuvers. Altitude increases, reductions, inclination changes, plane changes, basically up, down, left, right, and diagonals. And we're going to go tie together a number of those maneuvers using high propulsion satellites. We're thinking large performance satellites, 250 kilogram plus, Mini Cooper sized things with big solar arrays, doing 17,000 miles an hour, going up and down hundreds of kilometers like that.
Oh my goodness. So this must be costing a pretty penny to do.
The beauty,
all this stuff in space.
The beauty is here, what I'm trying to do is quite the opposite, actually. So I'm trying to find new ways to monetize existing space assets. There's a lot of money going into space today, like tons, like a phenomenally large amount of money, right? We've got SpaceX going public in the largest IPO of all time. That's had this amazing knock-on effect for private investment and public investment in the space industry. There are literally hundreds of billions of dollars flowing into space right now. That means that there are today about 150 companies building maneuverable satellites, if not more, depending on how you count. There's about 450 companies building engines, motors for satellites, right? Like rockets for satellites. Right. Now, these companies are all out there spending a small, fortune doing demonstration missions and flying early R&D programs. They're already building these satellites that we're going to use for racing. They're just available effectively to go off and go repurpose. And by that, I mean, these companies are all out trying to make money, right? This is a capitalist, economy, right? We're trying to build a space economy. There's money to be made, missions to be done. But many of these satellites, especially for early performers, these things are really beautifully performant, but yet they only have 1 or 2 years worth of actual missions booked when they launch. But the satellites last 10. So for instance, one of the teams that's going to fly with us in 2028, they're flying a satellite this year, and it's got initial missions, right? The reason they're flying it, they're going to go do some deliveries or host a payload or whatever. But then they're done, right? So they're multi-million-dollar satellites going to be sitting up there in space for another 8 or 9 years. And they don't have anything to do with it other than have it be like an on-orbit test bed. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create an opportunity here to go monetize those assets, these very expensive things that are otherwise just kind of floating around. And we're saying, look, you still have the ability to move around. You're advertising yourself as a highly maneuver-based, highly capable platform. Go show it. Go prove it. Bring your satellite over here. Race against your peers. Let's see who's best. And we need that, right? The space industry needs to have apples to apples comparisons because, again, we've got 150 companies building satellites, 450 building propulsion systems for satellites. No one knows who's real and who's not real, right? There's a lot of startup snake oil-y kind of like, people building businesses based off the promise of what can be in the future. And there's no realism. What I want to do is create a hyper factual, data-driven apples to apples comparison of what's real in space and thereby celebrate excellence, just like we did with automotive racing, impacting early days of the automotive industry, it was really, really good. It became a catalyst, right? It celebrated technical excellence and engineering. It created this entire culture of competition and excellence. It created new technologies. It brought new technologies to market faster, anti-lock brakes, power steering, take your pick, right? All those things came out of the race ecosystem and then became part of the standardized, industrialized automotive economy. The same thing can and should happen for space, and we're trying to create the context in which that can happen. So back to your original question, I'm trying to bring down the barriers to entry here, right? So like, unlike, hey, I want to go field a NASCAR team. Okay, great. Find me $100 million and you can go do that. We aren't expecting people to pony up any serious amount of cash, if any at all, up front, right? So we're going to industry who are already funding these missions, already booking the launches on the rockets. They're already doing the licensing. We're simply saying, prepare to go do some additional maneuvers when you're done. That's it, right? It's effectively you're already there. You already have the ability to participate. And hey, if you win, we're offering $1 million person 2028 to the winner, right? So there's real money to be made that can offset the cost of your mission. You can go sell your own ads. You can go after your own sponsorships. I've been at multiple space companies, including maneuverable platforms and launch and in-space optics companies. And every one of them has thought at one point or another about what advertising can be in space, but no one cares today because there's no audience. I'm trying to create the audience and thereby create a new revenue vertical for all these companies that are already operating, which is beautiful. Sorry. And I will keep going on this because this is our fundamental business strategy.
No,
here,
it's
right?
fine. Keep going. It's not a problem at all.
I'm not spending money designing and building a satellite that has to go and be tested, right? Like every other space company that's out there is burning huge amounts of cash building hardware, buying product, testing it, baking it in a vacuum chamber, vibrating it until it breaks on a shaking table. These are things that we have to spend huge amounts of money on in the industry. I have to spend none of that money, right? I get to take what everyone else is doing and stitch it together with existing technologies and go create something new that has value, right? So I have very low overhead. I have very low OpEx. I have very low technical risk. I'm not designing anything. The engineers I've hired are on contract to do certain very niche specific mission design stuff. They're not building anything. And that's absolutely phenomenally beautiful because it changes the economics of having investment in the space industry. And space is expensive. And those investments take a lot of capital. I don't. I have a huge amount of upside and a very small amount of capital required to go off and go scale this thing.
Basically, for some people that don't know, I'm gonna put a comparison on this one. It's pretty much having a Verizon cell tower, and you're using Boost Mobile off of it, pretty much.
Very similar. Yeah. Someone else is paying for the hard asset. I'm just selling a service. I like to talk about it like this, that the space industry, like the actual infrastructure has matured to the point where people like me don't have to worry about building the hardware and investing in the hardware. I can build the application layer that sits on top of it. Just like the early days of the internet, right? Like initially it was all about, network routers and fiber optic cables and like the actual backbone. But once it was there, suddenly it became, well, okay, fine, the backbone's built. How do you go build something? And for them, it was in software to go off and go do something of value on top of that infrastructure. That's exactly what I'm doing today, right? We've got maneuverable platforms. We've got cameras in space. We've got cameras on board the spacecraft. We've got ground-based cameras. We've got ground-based sensors. We've got visualization tech. We also have an existing sports media ecosystem that is absolutely phenomenally staffed with vendors who can do everything that we need to do and have been doing it for 100 years, right? I mean, there's a ready ecosystem of vendors to just bring on board to be like, go do what you do well, but our video feeds are just going to be coming a little bit slower and from a little bit further away. That's the only complexity here.
Really? Now, is there any type of either federal or any type of regulation towards this that you have to go through?
Yeah, totally. But the beauty is I'm a regulatory attorney. That's how I came up in the space industry, right?
Okay.
So most recently, I was the CEO at a company called Scout Space. We did in-space optics. So think really, really, really fancy cameras, primarily for intelligence and military customers in space to look at other things in space, basically using one satellite to image another satellite, which of course you can understand has this very clear connection to the production of sports events and racing events in space because it's a fundamental thing you need to go off and go do. But prior to that, I was in-house counsel at a number of different space companies. I've written or worked every type of license there can possibly be. I've seen all the things not to do, and I've seen the things that work. And right now, today, the US is the primary regulator, and that's a world I understand very well. And there's no reason we can't work very well within it. In fact, we've already started outreach with the regulators to often go make sure that they understand that we exist, we're functioning, we're good, mature operators. We are trying very hard to make sure we do the right thing and to engage early and often. But also, moreover, broadly in the space industry, that's a temporary monopoly. The US has a temporary monopoly because SpaceX is the majority of the capacity going to orbit.
Correct.
Some point they will not be the only monopoly out there. It won't be a monopoly anymore, right? There will be other providers, and when there are other regular, predictable, safe ways to get to space, other jurisdictions are going to become the primary regulators, and that's already happening a little bit. We have a trend within the space industry similar to that in maritime, where you'll have like flags of convenience, right? Where no one who owns a container ship is registering it in Delaware, right? They register it in Cote d'Ivoire or Papua New Guinea because it's cheap and it's low regulation. People do that in space as well, and it's not terribly common for U.S. entities. But as the space ecosystem becomes more geographically egalitarian and diversified, there certainly is going to be hey, look, if country A won't let us do something, then country B might. Not to say that that's what we're banking on, 100% not. In fact, again, as a U.S. entity, as a U.S. licensed attorney, right. I take this very seriously. In fact, when I started Atlas Cup earlier this year, I also started with some attorney friends, the Fédération Internationale des Sports Orbitaux in Paris, which is intended to be the FIFA or FIA for orbital sport, because I'm not the only orbital sport out there, insanely enough. And we want to be very forward leaning when it comes to best practices and safety and sustainability and, operating responsibly in space. I think orbital sport and media production in space can only occur if we are very, very proactive about engaging with the regulators and making sure we're doing things intelligently and safely and sustainably. And that's why that organization exists, because UFC is talking with the space station about hosting a fight in space. We've got multiple companies pitching lunar rover racing on the lunar surface, but controlled from a first-person controller on the ground here on Earth. We've got companies that are pitching physical competitions in the International Space Station. We've had other people talk about space racing in different formats over the years. I'm not the only one who's out there, and I think there needs to be these early conversations around safety, responsibility, and best practices so that we don't make a mistake and do something stupid. I think there's real opportunity here in the media and sports media world broadly in space. We need to do it safely and intelligently day one. Otherwise, we're going to screw it up and it's going to hurt everyone.
A lot of this is not known, to be honest with you. This is nothing mainstream, and this is something that should be. My next question is, which media outlets do you have relationship with, and I know you said 28 is going to be when the official launch is going to be the official competition. How will we go about in watching it?
Yeah, totally. So let me talk a little bit about our current outreach, and then we'll talk about fan experience. Okay. So one, what we're doing today is geared primarily towards being social, mobile, and streaming native. And that is quite intentional, right? So traditionally sports, up until the last couple of years, we're focused on linear broadcast, meaning like 2 hours live broadcast on a Saturday afternoon, right? Just think of your normal NFL game. That is no longer the case. So when I first had this idea 5-6 years ago, that's how people consumed sports, right? It was like single digit media content was consumed through social and mobile. That has changed dramatically in the last 5 years. This year, for the first time in 26, we're expecting like the golden demographic of 18 to 34-year-old males are going to consume the majority of their sports media content in short format through social and mobile. That's phenomenal. Again, it was single digits 5-6 years ago. Now it's 52% this year. That's like a sea change shift in how people consume sports. So space is hard for a whole bunch of reasons. It's a long ways away. It's hard to communicate. Live transmission is quite difficult. So I would really struggle and to do kind of cost effectively to do a live sport in space today. But what I can do is I can take a long format sport, something that takes a day or half a day or 2 days, and I can break it into short format vignettes, and I can drop a 60 to 90 second short on our own platform, on TikTok, on Instagram. And I can do that 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day, every day, over and over and over and over in perpetuity. And the beauty is that's how people are consuming the majority of their sports today.
I was getting ready to say that. That's
so
true.
I'm very lucky, right? So basically my format could only work if the shift in consumer behavior, which has occurred, in fact occurred. So again, 5 years ago, I could have had the exact same tech, the exact same capability, and I would have failed wildly because my fans wouldn't be consuming the format of content that I can create today. But I just got exceedingly lucky, and they're now consuming that content as the majority of their content. To the broadcast story itself, it doesn't mean we're ignoring traditional broadcast. We love traditional broadcast. There's a lot of money in sports for traditional broadcast. But we're early, right? The company's 4 months old, so we are still very much in growth phase, right? I tell everyone that I'm out here basically kissing babies and shaking hands and traveling the world, trying to get people excited about this, so that people understand that orbital sport is a thing. Eventually we'll get to the point of producing content, and then eventually we'll build up enough of it and enough excitement in a fan base that linear broadcast will want to talk to us. But that's actually happening sooner than we thought. One of the first partnerships we signed was with a television station, a linear television station with 2 channels in North Africa, 1 in Paris. And they were like, we love it. Everything about it, whatever content you've got, even early content, behind the scenes content, pre-race content, we don't care, we'll take it. So cool, that was a great sign. About a month later, and I'm now under NDA with them, so I can't name them, but a large 3-letter US television station reached out to us organically, and we're like, hey, like, do you want to do this? And I was like, absolutely, let's go off and go do it. So we see that as a great signal, right? I think one of the biggest questions is like, all right, cool, dude, like, it's space, it's interesting, it's racing, okay, fine, like, maybe there's some appeal there, but like, are people actually going to think this is interesting? Is the average fan going to think, okay, is this something worth tuning into every once in a while? And I'd say, well, look, if senior TV executives at a major national, channel are reaching out to us saying, this is cool, let's put you on TV, I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm probably barking up the right tree. So we're feeling really good about the broadcast element, but I'm very realistic about the fact that near term, I just don't have I don't have 30 minutes of content to go put on something, right? I've got some shorts that we'll eventually be able to do, hopefully very soon, maybe even later this year, involving in-space content, but we're 4 months old. I need a little breathing room to go off and go actually produce
it. Fine. It's good to explore the possibilities, because the possibilities are endless. And what you're describing, this is something that's unheard of from my eyes. I'm like, and even to my audience, this is something completely brand new, very innovative, and very outside the box. And that's something I really am looking forward to it. Trying to think of another question in mind towards this, because this is, like I said, this is something that can change a lot of things. I'm like, I could see Netflix jumping on this in one shot.
And it's also timed really well to where we are, right? So talking about your fans and the fact that no one knows this exists. Well, sure, no one does. But if you also think about the last couple of years, space in the social zeitgeist has taken a substantially more prominent position in the last 6 months than it did 3 years ago. 3 years ago, like, we would occasionally see a NASA announcement or like a SpaceX launch or something. Fine. This year is totally different, right? We have SpaceX going public in the biggest IPO of all time. There are going to be something like 300 millionaires made overnight when they go public, and a couple of billionaires, right? I mean, there's a huge amount of wealth being created, a huge amount of money flowing into it. It's going to change index funds across like major stock markets because of its size, right? I mean, we're all going to be basically forced to buy SpaceX stock because of its size the moment our retirement accounts like cycle through for 24 hours, right? It's insane. Moreover, we've got Artemis 3 and 4, the NASA missions taking us back to the moon. We're having humans go back to the moon in the next 24 months, right? That's phenomenal. There's 250 million live viewers for that event expected. And if you look historically, one of the, I love this talking point, but if you look at the top 10 most watched broadcasts, just of any kind, of all time, 2 through 10 are, as I'm sure you can guess, Super Bowls, because rightly so, it's the Super Bowl. The number 1 most watched broadcast of all time was the moon landing. So I'm literally taking sport and space are the 2 most watched, the 2 most eyeball catching, the 2 most galvanizing types of broadcast media, and I'm putting them together. And when you think about what 250 million live viewers represents, that is nearly twice the best performing Super Bowl, right? I mean, so the amount of attention, the amount of eyeballs on space today is so much more than it was 2 years ago, and it will be even more so in 2 years. So I think we're at this beginning of a wave of attention where space becomes a normal thing. Like, we've got companies out there pitching building lunar hotels. Hilton struck a deal to go off and go do a space station hotel deal, right? We've got Columbia Sportswear, right? Like the jacket manufacturer sponsoring lunar landers. We've got Swatch doing a deal with the space station. We've got Korean Airlines cutting a deal with a in-space logistics company, right? Like, this is becoming very, very fast a kind of kitchen table topic, right? It is, brands we know, Ferrero Rocher, Nutella, right? Just did an entire spin-off marketing thing around the Artemis missions because there was a Nutella jar floated through the live stream and like the internet,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't paid, right? It was pure happenstance, and they got like, I don't know, 200 million like impressions in like 24 hours, and I'm sure their marketing people were like, we couldn't buy that if we wanted to buy it, like,
Right.
but people are realizing that mere association between a brand and space is itself an entirely new platform to go off and go market, right? So I think, and that association is also really positive, right? It's about exploration and curiosity and magic and existentialism, these things that are actually really, really important, and I think speak really emotionally to people. And that's, again, one of these things that we think we're going to be really successful about is we have to recreate the emotional connection that people have to sport, right? Like when I watch the Giants play in the World Series, I'm like, oh my God, like this needs to happen or something wrong is going to happen in my life, right? It's a visceral thing. We need to recreate that in space. And the beauty is there's already this very intrinsic human connection between how we think about ourselves in the world and our connection to space, right? If you look at the earliest forms of media, the caves at Lascaux, right? Literally the first time humans as a species started creating art, like actual media, they put Orion's belt on the wall in the caves at Lascaux, right? I mean, literally since the beginning we started making art and media, space has been part of it. So I feel very, very confident that space is, for lack of better words, it's special, right? It has this really emotional thing for us where we're like, holy shit, like we are on this tiny little blue dot in the middle of the cosmos, and oh my God, what is that? Like, I mean, there is this really existentially dynamic thing, and for some people it's scary and negative, and okay, I'm probably not going to have them as fans, that's fine, but for many of us it's an exciting thing that it talks, we think about adventurism, we think about human excellence, we think about engineering prowess, we think about technology, we think about nation state level competition. There's so many interesting tropes and meta narratives through this that we can go off and go play off of and create content around that. It's again, I feel really, really confident that if we were, because of what we're doing, we're going to be successful. If we were doing something else, if I was doing submarine races or cave spelunking, I don't know, something that doesn't have that fundamental excitement that space brings to every kid on the planet on a regular basis, like we wouldn't be successful. But I think because of that, we will be.
Do you think other sports will follow?
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, we are going to be first to market. That's very, very important for us, which is why I'm trying to figure out ways to go do sprint format racing as soon as the end of this year, in theory, because I need to go kind of take that title as the first person to actually produce, I need to go show racing in space as soon as humanly possible, because I need to be the first one to go do it.
Yes.
But there's other people doing it. One of the investors in the company that I used to be CEO at had been pitched maybe 2 years ago by a company looking at doing a lunar basketball league. Right. So we had a company that was looking at, did a mock-up of doing soccer in a space station. Again, I mentioned UFC doing a fight in a space station. We've got multiple physical competitions in space stations, 2 lunar rover companies doing sports in space. There's a whole bunch of people who are poking at this or have looked at it. Drone Racing League explored it back in the day. A number of other companies have looked at it in the past, but couldn't figure out how to make it make sense. And many of them were not trying to simplify. They were trying to make it like this like spectacularly complex thing day one, like lunar basketball. My God, you have to like figure out human habitation on the moon and create the game format. Like it's like a $500 billion problem. Like that's a phenomenally non-economically viable business. I wish them the best. I will watch if they can figure out how to do it, but like that's a huge amount of money. What I'm proposing is based on existing tech. Like nothing has to be built that doesn't already exist, right? So I'm trying to be very realistic about what I've learned in the last 10 years in the industry about what we can do. What is the state of the art for the cameras? What can we do with existing sensors and tracking layers? What can we do with existing maneuverable platforms? And what can we create with that? So I think for me, I look at this as like, look, I've dumbed it down to the point where it is absolutely intrinsically executable today, while also still allowing me to do something that's exciting. Like we can create the fastest sport in history. I can take like our place basically in the next step of traditional racing competitions, right? We're talking like foot racing, camels, horses, the Kentucky Derby, America's Cup, F1. This is not a new format of sport. This is a well-trusted, tried and true thing. Take expensive, fast thing and compare it to the other guy's expensive, fast thing, right? Like we've we've just done this as a human activity for many, many millennia, right? So I think again, we're really well positioned to go off and go be first. But I want to see more people off creating media properties in space, and specifically sports properties. Because I think sport, of course, has this competitive element that I think is just absolutely phenomenally in parallel and in sync with what the space industry represents, right? Space has always been a competitive world. It's always been about who can do something first, who can do it faster, which country will achieve X soonest, right? That competitive element and the exploration element, I think, really fits really phenomenally well with the sport media. But of course, there's other media opportunities as well. And we love the exploration of that too, right? We think that we're going to be building out a tech stack that allows us to go create content in space. Now, for us, initially, that's sports, but you can, of course, think that same tech stack would be hyper supportive of filming a film or creating any other type of media in space, right? And there's a number of efforts underway today to go off and go do that. Tom Cruise, I think, is booked to go film a movie in a space station, right? Like this is happening. So I think we like the idea of being early, and we like the idea of being first, because I think if we waited for it to be something that everyone knows about and accepts as a norm, we're too late, right? We want to be the people who introduce it. That's part of what I'm raising money to go off and go do in the second half of the year. That's what the next year or 2 or 3 of my life looks like, is doing calls like this and pitching everyone and traveling the world and basically telling the good, the story of what this can be, because it's not going to happen until someone does it. And all it takes is for someone to just bloody well go do it. So I'm going to go do it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Is there anything else you wanted to add towards this? Because this is really, really impressive.
No, I mean, again, I could keep talking. I'm a lawyer again, right? I'll literally talk until someone kicks me out of the room. But no, I mean, I've really enjoyed the conversation, right? I mean, I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have, but I don't want to drone on and on.
Well,
Otherwise, for everyone.
I'm like, when I think of space and what can be done, I always think, and maybe it's just my safe mind out of this, is the safety factor. But what you're doing is everything is technically remote, correct?
Correct. Now I would flag. Now I would miss out on my like Silicon Valley entrepreneur hat if I didn't state it. But we love the idea of humans racing in space. I am just hyper realistic about what we can do today economically with a business case that closes. And like the tech is there to have humans race in space, but it would be really expensive. That price point is going to come down over time. The safety is going to go up over time. We would love to build that out at some point down the road. It's probably 10, 20 years out. But I look at what we're building today as the foundation for that. I think the first time humans race in space, it's going to be the most watched sporting event in the history of sports. And I will die on that.
Absolutely.
Like literally everyone with a smartphone, that's 2.5 billion people, they're going to get a notification on their phone saying humans racing in space for the first time, click here. They're all going to click that link because they're going to be like, wait a minute, what is happening? It doesn't matter. You could be in Bangladesh or South Africa or New York. It doesn't make a difference. Everyone's clicking that link. I will have the most watched sporting event in sports, and it will happen in space, and I will produce it. We're just realistic about not being able to close that business case today. But everything we're investing in today is designed to facilitate that down the road. And that's the real opportunity, right? Like I'm a capitalist, like I'm an opportunist, right? Like my job is to go off and go make the most possible money as humanly possible using other people's tech. Unabashedly so. Like I like no shame, right? That is my job, and I love that job. But I'm going big, right? But I'm going big in a crawl, walk, run scenario. I'm going to crawl for the next 3 years before I go run for a decade, so I can go off and go or walk for a decade, and then I'm going to go run with human competition in space. And by the time we get to that, I'm going to be the only person who can produce it, the only person who can do it. We're going to be the only, like valid competitive ecosystem out there in orbital sport. It's going to be a given that we own it. And that's where we are today. This is Wild West. I am staking a claim in orbital sport, competitive ecosystems in space. That is something that, just like the West, you just got to show up and do it, right? You show up and you stake physically, right? That's what it is, staking the claim. You literally like put out stakes and say like, this is my line, don't cross the line, right? Exactly. And it's not perfect. It's not in perpetuity. I'm assuming there will be other successful competitors who come out and nibble away at the edges of what orbital sport can be. But for a period of time, I'm going to have a monopoly over it because I'm going to be the first one to go off and go do it. And I like monopolies. Monopolies are good. Monopolies are great for business. Like, give me a monopoly. That's my job, right? I'm going to go be a monopoly.
Yeah. That's because you're the only one that's in line, pretty much.
Exactly. Yep.
Philip, thank you so much for being on my show. I really do appreciate it. And also giving me insight of something that I knew nothing about. And now I really got a great idea of what we can expect in the future, especially sports in space. Thank you
Love it.
so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Frankie. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for listening to Stadium BS. Please take a look at my website, www.castleonms.com. That is CASTELLONMS.com, where I'm selling everything, including the kitchen sink and my hair follicles. Don't be a stranger. Get in contact. Any ideas, let me know. Take care. God bless. And I'll see you on the next one.
Step up to the plate, yeah, we calling it straight. No cap in the game, yeah, we speaking no fake.